My name is Leon Decker. I'm 54 years old. 4 days after I wired $45,000 into my daughter's business account, her future mother-in-law sent a group text to everyone on the brunch guest list. It said, "Just a reminder, Sunday's celebration is for the people who truly invested in this dream. We're keeping it intimate." There was a photo attached. A cream-colored display board, already printed, with the heading "Founding Investors" and 5 names on it. None of them were mine. I read it 3 times. I was on my back under a commercial air handler in a Kroger on Highway 70, and my phone was balanced on my chest, and refrigerated air dripped on my face from a cracked condensate line, and I read that text 3 times. I didn't reply. But before I take you back to how we got there, take a second and hit like and subscribe. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. I read every single one. Now let me take you back to that Thursday. My daughter Abby is 27. She has her mother's stubbornness and her mother's handwriting, and she wants to open a catering business with her fiancé Todd. Todd Garfield is a chef. Trained, genuine, the kind of man who will spend 45 minutes getting a sauce right and never mention it. I liked him from the second time I met him, which is usually how it goes with men who do their work without an audience. His mother is Nadine Garfield. She has sold commercial real estate in Nashville for 22 years. She is very good at it. She is the kind of woman who walks into a room and immediately starts calculating what it's worth. The business was Abby's idea. She'd been planning it for 3 years, in notebooks, on spreadsheets, on napkins at my kitchen table on Sunday mornings. High-quality event catering for corporate clients and small weddings around Cookeville. They'd operate out of a licensed commissary kitchen they were renting from a restaurant that folded its catering arm after COVID. The name was going to be Patty's Table. Patty was my wife. She died 4 years ago. A stroke, sudden, no warning. Abby picked the name herself and didn't ask me, and she didn't need to. The SBA loan was for $80,000. The bank required a 20% equity injection. $16,000 in the business account before they'd disperse anything. They also required a personal guarantor with sufficient net worth. The loan officer at First Heritage Bank on Broad Street was a woman named Carla Mims. I'd sat across from her desk twice before. Once in 2014 when I got my business line of credit. Once in 2019 when I financed a second service vehicle. She knows my file the way I know a bad capacitor. She can look at a number and tell you what it means before you finish reading it. I went to see Carla on a Tuesday afternoon, in the same shirt I'd been wearing since 6 that morning. She pulled up my accounts. She put 2 pages in front of me. She explained what I was signing. A personal guarantee on an SBA loan means you are personally responsible for the full balance if the borrower defaults. Collateral, assets, everything you own. She explained it once. I told her I understood. She explained it again, not because she thought I was slow, but because her job requires it. I told her I understood the second time too. I signed Leon J. Decker in the space above the word guarantor, in the blue pen she handed me. Then I wired $16,000 from my checking. 3 years of Saturday jobs, weekend emergency calls, the kind of work other guys in my field pass on, because they want their Saturdays back. I don't have a lot to protect on Saturdays. Then I moved $29,000 out of my Roth IRA early. If you're under 59 and a half, there's a penalty for that. I'm 54. I did the math on a paper bag in Carla's parking lot and decided the math wasn't the point. $45,000, wired Thursday at 3:50 p.m. I didn't tell Abby the number. I figured when it showed up in the account, it would say what it needed to say. That's how I was raised. You do the work. The light comes on. That's the proof. The group text was called Team Garfield Decker, and it had 14 people in it. Nadine ran it the way she probably runs listing presentations. Constant, organized. Never quite asking for input when she could just announce a decision. Color palettes, lean-in samples, a digital mood board that as far as I could tell was photographs of other photographs. In 4 months I sent 2 messages. A thumbs up in October, a question about parking in November that nobody answered. I read that chat, the way you read a highway sign you already know you're not taking. Then in December, Nadine posted something that I spent longer looking at than I should have. A graphic with her company's logo in the corner. Founding Investor Celebration, January 19th. Brunch at the Wyndham, Nashville. The caption said, "We want to honor the people who made this dream possible." I thought it was a general invite. I thought I'd be getting more details. I didn't. 4 days after the wire, I was on my back under that air handler in the Kroger, and the text came in. The display board photo. 5 names. The heading Founding Investors. Nadine had written a check for $20,000. Her sister had given $5,000. 3 of Todd's college friends had each put in smaller amounts. All of it was cash, given directly as gifts. What I had done was different. I'd signed my name to a document that said if this business failed, I would personally cover $80,000, and I'd put in $45,000 in cash. But a guarantee isn't a gift. Nadine, who has read financial documents for a living for 2 decades, understood that distinction the way it suited her. I climbed out from under the air handler. I sat on a milk crate in the back of the store and opened my banking app. The wire I'd sent Thursday was still showing processing. Banks don't move large wires received after 3 p.m. into a business account at a separate institution until the next business day, except the receiving bank had closed Friday for a staff training day. The money hadn't moved yet. I sat there a while, then I drove home. Here's the question you're already asking. Why didn't I just say something? Why didn't I call Nadine and tell her my name was on the banknote? My wife Patty used to answer that question for me. She'd do it at cookouts, at family dinners, in parking lots after church. She'd say, "Tell them what you did for the Hendersons," and I'd wave her off, and she'd tell it anyway, and I'd stand there embarrassed and glad in equal measure. She was the one who could say the thing. I was the one who did the thing. We had an arrangement that worked for 31 years, and then she died, and nobody picked up her half. I'd gotten so accustomed to the silence that I'd stopped noticing what it was costing me. That night, Abby called at 9:15. She sounded the way you sound when you've been in the car, rehearsing something. I sat on the back porch and looked at the tree line and asked her the question I needed answered. "Did you know about the display board before the text went out?" The pause told me before she spoke. "Yeah," she said, "I knew." I didn't say anything. She filled it. "It's Nadine's event, Dad. She's organizing everything. If I fight her on every single decision, Todd and I can't function as a family. I have to pick my battles." I understood that. I did. She wasn't wrong. Then I asked the question that mattered. "Abby, do you think I didn't invest in this business?" 4 seconds. I counted. "You signed some bank paperwork," she said. "I know that. But a guarantee isn't the same as putting money in." That's what Nadine explained. We hung up. I sat there a long time after. She wasn't being cruel. She was repeating something she'd been told by a woman who knows how to frame financial instruments in ways that minimize inconvenient obligations. And I had never once sat across from my daughter and explained what a personal guarantee actually means. I'd assumed the documents would do it. I'd handed somebody else the pen again. Monday at 7:45, I was outside First Heritage Bank before the interior lights came on. Carla pulled up at 5 to 8. She saw me on the steps, and her expression did a small thing. "The wire from Thursday," I said. "Has it cleared?" She sat down. She typed. "It's still processing," she said. "The receiving bank had that closure Friday. They haven't confirmed receipt. Can it be recalled?" She looked at me. "You sure?" I told her what happened. Not everything. Just the shape of it, the display board, the 5 names, the group text, my daughter's voice on the phone. She listened the way someone listens when they've heard a version of this before. Her branch manager was a man named Doug Kettner, 62 years old, reading glasses on a lanyard, a man who has said no to a lot of people with a patience that almost sounds like yes. He reviewed my file. He put a release authorization in front of me. "There's a $40 fee," he said, "and this isn't guaranteed. We submit the recall. The receiving bank has to honor it before they credit the account. In most cases, they do." Most cases is what percentage? 9 out of 10. Carla was watching me from across the room. "Submit it," I said, "and I want the confirmation in writing." I signed, Doug witnessed it, then I had about 6 hours to get through. I went to work. That's all there ever is. Bert showed up at the job site at 10:30 with 2 coffees, because he'd heard from somebody that I hadn't said a word all weekend. That's how it goes in a small market. Nobody asks directly. They just appear with coffee. He set one on my toolbox and started checking refrigerant pressures without being asked. We worked 30 minutes without talking. Then I told him all of it. The van, the IRA penalty, the wire, the display board, his own town Cookville, knowing Abby's plans since she was drawing them on napkins, the bank that morning, the 9 out of 10. Bert doesn't say, "Oh, that's terrible." He set down his manifold gauge and looked at the condenser unit instead of me, which I appreciated. They left your name off the board, he said, the way you'd read a serial number. They did. He was quiet a minute. Then he asked the only question that month I couldn't answer. What are you going to do with the guarantee? You can't unsign a personal guarantee the way you recall a wire. I hadn't gotten there yet. I'd been so focused on the $45,000 in cash that I'd forgotten I was still holding $80,000 in liability. Taking back the money didn't remove my name from the loan documents. I don't know, I said. He nodded like that was the right answer. The wire's the easy part, he said. The rest of it is what you have to figure out. At 2:40 p.m. my phone buzzed on the toolbox. I knew from the length of the buzz it was an email. Wire recall confirmed. Funds returned to originating account. Reference WR4490872. Amount $45. I walked out to my truck and sat there. I want to tell you I felt something good. I felt the way you feel when you've carried a couch back up a flight of stairs. Not better, not worse, just aware of your own arms. The money was back, but my name was still on page 3 of a loan document in a Nashville bank's filing system. That night I sat at my kitchen table with a legal pad. I have a manila folder on top of my refrigerator where I keep every signed document I've ever touched. My wife hated that habit. The folder is still there. I pulled out the SBA loan documents and read the guarantee section. I read the modification and release clause. A guarantor can petition for release if the loan has not yet been funded and the equity injection has been recalled. I had a window, small, real. Tuesday morning I sent one email, not to Abby, not to Nadine, to Carla Mims at First Heritage Bank with the SBA loan coordinator in Nashville copied. 4 sentences. Miss Mims, I am formally requesting release from my personal guarantee on SBA loan application 2024 TN008847, Patty's Table LLC, effective today. As the equity injection has been recalled and the loan has not yet been disbursed, I understand I am within the modification window per Section 12 of the guarantee agreement. I'm available by phone at this number if you need anything from me to process this. I've copied the SBA coordinator. I put Abby on copy. I did not put Nadine on copy. Nadine wasn't the guarantor. Carla was the loan officer. The document was the document, and the only correct desk for that email was the woman who held the file. Then I went to work. For 4 days, nothing. There were 17 group texts about centerpieces, a photo of the printed brunch menus, a countdown graphic, 6 days, nobody called, nobody wrote to me. My daughter didn't call either, and I understood that because she'd been copied on the email. She didn't have the words for it yet. Neither did I. Wednesday night, I did something I'd have been embarrassed for anyone to see. I got the legal pad out and I wrote down everything I'd ever done for Abby. Not to send it anywhere, not to build a case, just to check whether I'd imagined my own life. I wrote down that I was at the hospital 20 minutes after her mother's stroke. I wrote down the year she was 16 and totaled the Honda, and I covered the gap without mentioning it again. I wrote down 2 semesters of community college, and then the 2 years she stopped going, and how I let her sit at my table and figure herself out without saying a single word about school. I wrote down the $1,200 for the deposit on her first Nashville apartment. I wrote down every Sunday morning. She spread her business plans on my kitchen table, and I listened without telling her to be realistic. 3 pages, front sides only. On page 3 I wrote 1 line. Then I crossed it through with 2 clean lines and wrote something different underneath. I'm not going to tell you what it was yet. Friday morning at 8:04, Carla Mims sent an email to every party on the loan file. 7 lines. I've read it about 40 times since. This correspondence confirms that the personal guarantee of Leon J. Decker, filed in support of SBA application 2024 TN 008847, has been released effective November 5th per borrower modification request and guarantor petition. As the equity injection has been recalled and the loan has not been disbursed, the application is currently in suspended status. To proceed, a replacement qualified guarantor must be designated within 10 business days with verification of net worth. Absent designation by November 18th, the application will be withdrawn and the approval will expire. Please advise at your earliest convenience. See Mims, First Heritage Bank Commercial Lending. No tone, no editorializing, not one adjective in the whole thing, just the facts the way a banker reads them. Nadine got that email at 8:07. Abby told me later she called Todd first. Todd was on a kitchen shift and didn't pick up. Nadine called the bank. Carla was in a meeting until 10. At 9:15, my phone lit up on the truck seat. Nadine Garfield. In 3 years, that woman had never once called me directly. Not when Abby and Todd got engaged. Not at Thanksgiving. Not once. I let it go to voicemail. Then I pulled into a gas station and listened to it twice. Leon, hi, it's Nadine. I got a strange email from the bank this morning about the guarantee paperwork. I think there's been a miscommunication somewhere. Give me a call. I called her back at 9:40 because I've never let a message sit. She answered on the first ring. Warm, bright, the voice she uses at listing presentations. Leon, thank you for calling back. I'm honestly confused by this email. It says the guarantee has been released. I think something got mixed up on their end. It didn't get mixed up. I requested the release Tuesday morning. A pause, very brief. Why on earth would you do that? Because the brunch invitation made clear that I hadn't contributed to this business, so I stopped contributing. Leon, that text was about keeping the event to a manageable size. It wasn't a statement about your involvement. It had a display board with names on it. My name wasn't one of them. Longer silence. You are being incredibly dramatic over a group text. I'm not being anything. I signed a document, and I unsigned it through the process the bank provided. That's the whole event. Do you understand what you're doing to your daughter's future? And there it is. That's the sentence they always reach for. I watched a pickup pull out of the pump next to me. I withdrew from a role that the founding investor board made clear wasn't valued, I said. I'd think you'd be relieved. It's one less obligation for your family to worry about. This is petty. Nadine, one thing before we hang up. What? Your display board lists 5 investors. The SBA file listed 1 guarantor. Those are different documents. Only one of them was legally binding. The silence went long enough that I checked the screen to see if the call had dropped. Then she said, very evenly, I'll have Todd call you. She hung up. She still thought all I'd ever done was sign a piece of paper. The $45,000 was information she didn't have yet. Todd didn't call, Abby posted. Saturday afternoon. A photo of herself on her apartment back porch, a coffee cup going cold in her hand. The caption ran 4 paragraphs. I'll give you the shape of it. Some people say they support you right up until it's inconvenient. Some people choose being right over being present. I'm trying to lead with grace, and I'm grateful for everyone who has shown up for us. She didn't use my name. She didn't have to. Her followers included most of Cookville. By noon, I had 11 texts. A cousin I've known since she was 7 telling me I was destroying my daughter's future. A woman from my church who sent a Bible verse about peacemakers. Bert texted to make sure I'd seen it in case I hadn't. I had seen it. That afternoon, Abby sent me a direct message. I can't believe you're punishing us over a brunch invitation. I sat with that for about an hour. Then I did the one thing that whole month I'd call clever, and I'm not proud of the coldness of it. But I would do it again without changing a single step. I scrolled up in our message thread to the original group text, the display board photo. The caption that said the celebration was for the people who truly invested in this dream. Nadine's words, sent from Nadine's number, timestamped Friday morning. I screenshotted it, her name on it, the board, the timestamp. I sent it back into our conversation with no caption, no commentary, not one letter underneath it. The 3 dots appeared, stopped, started again, stopped a 3rd time, and then they stopped for good. She never answered that message, not once, not ever. I want to stop here and be honest about something, because this is the part I've left out every time I've told this story. I was sitting in my kitchen Saturday night with my thumb over the screen, ready to type, I'm sorry, I overreacted. Tell me what I need to do to fix this. I was maybe 30 seconds from sending it. If you have ever been the one person holding a line while everyone around you calls you the problem, hit like so. I know this room isn't empty. And tell me in the comments, when did you stop explaining yourself to people who had already decided? I put the phone face down. I didn't send it. It was Todd who found it. The following Thursday. He'd been going through the business accounts, trying to figure out what the loan suspension meant for the commissary lease timeline. I scrolled past a transaction and stopped and scrolled back up. A wire received on a Thursday, recalled on a Monday, $45,000, and in the memo field, in a bank system font, 2 words I'd typed at Carla's counter, for Patty's table. He called Abby. He drove to her office. He put his phone on her desk and showed her the screen. Then he drove 45 minutes to Cookville. It was past 10:30 when headlights came across my front window. I was in a t-shirt. I came to the door half asleep. He was standing on my front step in his work coat, with his phone at his side, and the look of a man who'd been driving fast and thinking faster. He tried to start twice before anything came out. "Did you sell something?" he finally said. "My service van, the 2006 Transit. It's got your future mother-in-law's name stenciled on the door because I never changed it after she died. Patty. That's where the equity injection came from." He put his hand flat against my doorframe. Todd is 29 and works commercial kitchens and stays level when the walk-in goes down on a Saturday night. He did not stay level on my front step. I let him. I put my hand on the back of his neck the way you do when someone needs to know they're not going to fall over, and I let him get through it. When he could talk, he said he needed to tell Abby. "Tell Nadine, tell everyone, tonight." "Don't," I said. He looked at me like I'd spoken a different language. "Let the bank tell them. Some things land better when they don't come from the man they'd benefit." He didn't understand, I could see it. He would in 9 days. What happened at the brunch, I heard from 3 different people over the following 2 weeks. I was not there. I was never going to be there. Nadine had spent 10 business days trying to find a replacement guarantor. Her brother-in-law had net worth, but not the credit profile the SBA required. A business associate agreed, and then read the guarantee terms and changed his mind. Time ran out. Carla Mims sent the final notice on the 10th business day. It went to every party on the loan file, including Todd. It arrived at 11:40 on Sunday morning, while 40 people were eating at the Wyndham, and a cream-colored display board with 5 names stood on an easel near the entrance. Todd read it at the table. He read it twice, then he stood up. He doesn't raise his voice. He got that from somewhere good in him. He took his phone and pulled up the business bank account app and set it face up in the center of the table near the candle. "That's the wire my future father-in-law sent. $45,000. It's recalled because he withdrew from this project after the group text said only real investors were invited." Somebody leaned in to read the screen. Nadine said something about a guarantee not being equivalent to a direct investment. Todd said, "He sold the van he's driven for 18 years. The van with my future mother-in-law's name painted on the side. He never changed it after she passed. He did it without telling anyone, because that's how he does everything." Somebody's water glass went down on a table. Not dramatically. Just quietly, the way you set something down when you don't know what else to do with your hands. "The loan is in suspension because I don't have a guarantor anymore." He looked at the display board. "He wasn't on your wall. He was on the banknote." He picked up his phone and sat down. And the room did what rooms do. 40 people and about 4 seconds of complete silence. And 4 seconds is a very long time when 40 people are doing it at once. I found out at 11:58. I was home, replacing a ceiling light in my hallway that had been burned out since September. A fixture I kept not getting to because the only house I never seemed to get around to is my own. I got the new bulb in. The hall came up warm. My phone rang. It was Todd Road Noise. He was already driving. I sat down on the step between the kitchen and the hallway, because my legs did that on their own when he started describing it. Nadine at the head of the table, the display board, his own voice reading the bank statement out loud in a room of 40 people. When he finished, he said it twice. "She heard your name from the bank document, Dad, not from the wall, from the file." All right. Not one person in that room knew, not one. I sat on that step, and I want to be honest about what happened next because I've told this story twice and I've cut this part both times. I sat there and I cried. Not about the money, not about being right. It was 4 years of Patty being the one who said the thing, and then 4 years of no one saying it, and then a loan document saying 12 seconds of it entirely by accident. That's all it was. Todd was quiet on the line and let me have it, and I will be grateful to him for that for the rest of my life. When I could talk, I asked him one question. "The name, is it still Patty's Table?" He had to pull over. I heard the blinker click. "Abby's not changing it, Dad." That was the first thing she said after I sat back down. I put my hand over my eyes. The business opened 8 months later, not with an SBA loan, with a smaller private loan, a reduced commissary rental, and a first-year corporate contract Todd brought in from his hotel kitchen connections. Total startup cost, $41,000. Theirs, manageable, real. I gave them $12,000 as a gift, not a guarantee, not a wire sent in the dark, a gift. I said the number out loud when I handed Abby the check. I told her it came from me and I was glad to give it. I wrote her mother's name in the memo line. She cried, I didn't. We were both surprised by which of us did which. Nadine came to the soft opening. Todd invited her and she came and she was quiet in a way I hadn't seen before. There was no display board, no slideshow, no event title. Just tables and Todd's food, and about 20 people who mattered, including Bert, who ate 3 plates and didn't comment on the portion sizes. After dinner, Abby asked me to say something. I don't give speeches. I hadn't written anything down. I stood up with a coffee cup in my hand, and 20 people looked at me, and I understood in about 1 second why Patty always did this part. I said 4 things. I said, Todd, you stood up in a room where it cost you something real. Your mother was sitting right there. You did it anyway. I said, Abby, you picked the right name for this business. You always knew whose table we were really sitting at. I said, Bert, thank you for the coffee in October, when I needed it and couldn't say I needed it. Then I stopped, and I felt the whole thing turn over in my chest. And I did the one thing I had not done in 54 years of living. I told them something I had done. I looked at my daughter. I sold my van and I pulled from my retirement, and I put your mother's name on a bank document before I knew whether any of it would matter. I don't say these things, usually. I'm saying it tonight, one time, so there's a record somewhere other than a filing cabinet. Abby put her hand flat on the table. Bert looked at his coffee. A man across the room who I'd met twice said something quiet I didn't quite catch. And at the end of the table, Nadine Garfield sat with her hands in her lap and said nothing. Not because she had been broken, but because there was nothing left to manage and nowhere to position herself. And a woman who has worked a room for 22 years goes very still when there is no room left to work. That was enough. I've made my peace with enough being enough. I drove home a little after 10, came in through the side door. The hallway light came up warm and yellow. Same bulb I'd put in the night, everything came apart. Still going. So here's where I've landed, and then I'll let you go. I still do the work quietly. That part of me is not changing and it's not going to. Someone's deposit comes up short. Someone's kid needs a lift. Someone needs their name on a document they can't sign themselves. I'm still that person. I've made my peace with being that person. But I'm done handing my story to other people and being surprised by how they tell it. Nadine Garfield picked up the pen I left on the table. She wrote "Not a Real Investor" on a cream-colored board, and for 4 days that was the only version of me that existed in writing anywhere. The bank document told the truth by accident. I would rather it hadn't been by accident. I put Patty's photo in the kitchen drawer the night of the soft opening. The one where she's standing in the backyard in her green jacket, laughing at something off camera. I don't know what was funny. I never asked. Underneath it, at the bottom of that drawer, is a recall confirmation. Reference number, timestamp, and all. $45,000 that went out on a Thursday and came back on a Monday, and in between it changed every conversation that was worth having. I keep it there because some receipts aren't about the money. That's where I'll leave it. Type 1 in the comments if you'd have recalled that wire Monday morning. Type 2 if you'd have let it clear and kept the peace. There's no wrong answer. I read every single one.